What if the deepest pain you've ever felt wasn't proof that you were broken, but proof that you were finally free from a mask that was suffocating you? If you're among the small percentage of people who've stood in the terrifying silence after everything familiar has been stripped away, this isn't just another self-help video. This is your psychological survival map. In the next 50 minutes, you'll discover why the void hurts so much and how Carl Jung's shadow work transforms that pain into your greatest strength. The void is that sacred, terrifying space we enter when we finally let go of relationships, careers, identities, or dreams that defined us. Most people think letting go should feel liberating, but instead, it feels like psychological death. Here's what makes this dangerous. We live in a culture that pathologizes emptiness and demands immediate replacement of what's lost. We're taught to fear the space between who we were and who we're becoming. The problem isn't the void itself, but our unconscious relationship to it. When we don't understand that this emptiness is actually a psychological pregnancy, the sacred pause before rebirth, we either flee into distractions or collapse into despair. Carl Jung knew that the void isn't the end of you. It's the end of who you were never meant to be. Let me tell you about Kylie, a 34-year-old marketing director who built her entire identity around being the reliable one. For 15 years, she showed up early, stayed late, and absorbed everyone else's chaos like a psychological sponge. Her apartment reflected this neutral colors, everything in its place, a life organized around other people's needs. When her company downsized and she lost her job, something strange happened. Instead of immediately job hunting, Kylie found herself sitting in her living room for hours staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed with well-meaning friends, offering networking opportunities, but she couldn't bring herself to respond. The silence felt unbearable, yet strangely necessary. "I felt like I was dissolving," she told me months later. "Not just my career's me. The person who knew how to handle everything, who everyone relied on. She was just gone." Kylie's eyes had a different quality. Now, less practiced composure, more authentic presence. The turning point came when she stopped trying to fill the emptiness and started listening to it. She realized the void wasn't taking something from her. It was revealing what had never been real in the first place. Carl Jung understood that what we call the void is actually the collapse of what he termed the persona, the mask we wear to survive in the world. When this artificial self dissolves, we're left face to face with our shadow, the parts of ourselves we've hidden to maintain our socially acceptable roles. This process isn't random. It follows predictable psychological patterns that, once understood, transform terror into transformation. There are three primary mechanisms at work during void experiences. First, we encounter what I call projection withdrawal. Throughout our lives, we project aspects of our identity onto external structures, relationships, careers, social roles, even possessions. These external mirrors reflect back a version of ourselves that feels solid and real. When we let go of these structures, either by choice or circumstance, we lose the mirrors that reflected our constructed identity back to us. Without external validation, the persona begins to crumble like a building whose foundation has been removed. The person who defined themselves as the successful executive faces unemployment. The individual whose identity centered on being the perfect partner experiences relationship ending. The parent whose entire sense of self revolved around active caregiving watches their children leave home. In each case, the external structure that supported their self-concept disappears, leaving them facing the question, who am I when I'm not performing this role? Second comes shadow emergence. The qualities we've suppressed to maintain our good image suddenly surface with surprising intensity. The people pleaser discovers volcanic rage they never knew existed. The strong one who always held everything together feels overwhelming vulnerability. The invisible one, who stayed safely in the background, experiences a desperate craving to be seen and heard. These aren't character flaws or signs of breakdown. They're disowned parts of the psyche demanding integration. Jung understood that we don't become whole by maintaining our good image, but by reclaiming the parts of ourselves we've exiled to maintain that image. Third is what Jung called psychic container collapse. Our psyche needs boundaries to feel safe, just as our body needs skin to maintain its integrity. Throughout our lives, we create psychological containers through routines, relationships, roles, and belief systems. These containers give shape to our experience and help us navigate complexity without becoming overwhelmed. When major life structures disappear through job loss, relationship-ending health crisis, or spiritual awakening, we lose our psychological container, creating the terrifying sensation of dissolving or falling apart. Without familiar boundaries, the psyche feels boundless in a way that's more terrifying than liberating. This creates 4 distinct types of void experiences that I've observed in my practice. The abandoned have lost primary relationships and face the terror of existing without the mirror of intimate connection. The displaced have lost their social or professional roles and must discover who they are when they're not performing their function. The disillusioned have lost core beliefs or meaning systems and must rebuild their understanding of reality from the ground up. The dismantled have lost fundamental identity structures and experience what feels like complete ego death. Each type faces the same core challenge, learning to exist without the external frameworks that previously defined their sense of self. When you see clearly into this mechanism, you become the mirror others are afraid to face, because you're no longer participating in the collective illusion that external structures can provide lasting identity. But this awareness comes with serious psychological and social risks that we must address directly. Because understanding the theory isn't enough. You need practical protection for the journey. The first danger is what I call premature filling, and it's perhaps the most common way people abort their transformation before it's complete. When we rush to replace what's been lost before understanding why it needed to go, we fall into what Jung called unconscious repetition, recreating the same patterns with different people or situations. The divorced person who immediately enters a new relationship often finds themselves playing the same role with different actors. The burned-out executive who quickly accepts another high-stress position discovers that changing companies didn't change the fundamental dynamics. The people-pleaser who loses one demanding friendship quickly attracts another person who needs constant caretaking. This happens because the void contains essential information about our unconscious patterns, but we can only receive this information if we stay present with the emptiness long enough for it to reveal its teachings. Your countermeasure is the 90-day rule, and I want you to take this seriously, because your future authenticity depends on it. Commit to no major decisions for 90 days after entering the void. This means no new relationships, career changes, major purchases, or life-altering commitments. Use this time for observation, not action. Keep a daily log of what arises when you resist the urge to immediately fill the space. Notice what feelings come up, what old patterns you're tempted to recreate, what fears drive you toward replacement. This isn't punishment, it's protection. You're giving your psyche time to compost the old identity before trying to plant something new. The second risk is identity collapse, and this is where people can get genuinely lost if they don't have proper support and understanding. When the persona dissolves, some people experience complete ego fragmentation. They lose all sense of who they are, leading to what psychiatry labels as depression or anxiety disorders, but which is often actually a natural part of psychological transformation happening without proper context. The person feels like they're disappearing, losing their mind, or becoming nothing. They may experience depersonalization, where they feel detached from themselves, or derealization, where the world feels unreal. These symptoms terrify family members and often lead to premature psychiatric intervention that pathologizes a natural process. Here's your protection essence anchoring. This practice involves identifying the core aspects of yourself that exist independent of your roles, relationships, or achievements. Write down 3 essential qualities that remain constant regardless of your external circumstances. These might be values like honesty, curiosity, or compassion. They might be fundamental ways you relate to the world, like your sense of humor, your connection to nature, or your capacity for creativity. These become your psychological anchors during dissolution. Practice connecting with these values through daily meditation or reflection, reminding yourself that your essence exists independent of your functions. When the storm of dissolution hits these anchors, keep you tethered to your core self, while everything else reorganizes around you. The third risk is shadow overwhelm, and this is particularly dangerous for people who've spent years suppressing their authentic feelings and desires. As suppressed aspects of the self emerge, people can become flooded with intense emotions. They've never learned to navigate rage that feels murderous, grief that feels endless, desire that feels shameful, or power that feels dangerous. Without proper integration practices, these emerging shadow aspects can take over completely, leading to destructive behavior, broken relationships, or psychological fragmentation. The formerly gentle person becomes cruel. The previously responsible individual acts recklessly. The once caring parent becomes emotionally unavailable. Your safeguard is gradual integration, and this practice is central to Carl Jung's shadow work. Dedicate 20 minutes daily to what Jung called active imagination, dialoguing with the emerging shadow aspects through journaling art or meditation. Don't judge these aspects or try to get rid of them. Instead, approach them with curiosity and respect. Ask them what they need, what they're trying to tell you, what gifts they might offer if integrated consciously. Remember, these aren't foreign invaders. They're parts of yourself coming home after years of exile. The goal isn't to become these qualities unconsciously, but to integrate their energy in healthy, conscious ways. If rage is emerging, find constructive ways to express it through physical exercise, advocacy, or boundary setting. If grief is surfacing, create rituals for honoring what's been lost. If desire is awakening, explore what you truly want rather than what you think you should want. Now let me give you a comprehensive 3-phase protocol for navigating the void consciously, because theory without practice leaves you vulnerable to unconscious repetition of old patterns. This isn't just information, it's a map for one of the most important journeys you'll ever take. Phase 1 is discernment, and it spans your first 30 days in the void. Your primary task during this phase is learning to distinguish between what's actually yours and what you've absorbed from others throughout your lifetime. Most people's identities are composites of expectations, projections, and survival adaptations, rather than authentic self-expression. You've been carrying other people's dreams, fears, and definitions of success without realizing it. The divorce attorney who realizes they chose law to please their father. The nurse who discovers they entered healthcare because their family needed a caretaker. The entrepreneur who recognizes they started a business to prove they weren't a failure, not because they had a genuine calling. Your daily practice involves spending 15 minutes each morning asking, "What am I feeling that isn't mine?" This requires developing somatic awareness, the ability to notice where emotions sit in your body and whether they feel native to your system or foreign. Inherited anxiety often feels different than authentic fear. Absorbed anger has a different quality than righteous indignation. Pay attention to emotions that feel too big for the current situation. Feelings that don't match your actual experience, or reactions that seem to belong to someone else from your past. Return feelings that don't belong to you through visualization. Imagine giving them back to their source with gratitude for carrying them as long as you did, but recognizing they were never yours to hold. This practice of Carl Jung's shadow work begins with recognizing what shadows belong to you and which ones you've been carrying for others. Create what I call an identity archaeology project during this phase. Make a list of every role you've played, every identity you've held, every way you've defined yourself. Then ask which of these came from my authentic desire and which came from external pressure, survival needs, or unconscious absorption. Be honest about what you chose and what chose you. Notice which identities feel alive when you think about them, and which feel heavy or constricting. This isn't about judging your choices, but about bringing consciousness to patterns that have been running automatically. Phase 2 is shadow integration, covering days 31 through 60, and this is where Carl Jung's shadow work becomes intensely practical. Shadow work isn't abstract psychological theory. It's the daily practice of befriending the parts of yourself you've rejected, denied, or hidden to maintain your acceptable image. This phase requires courage because you'll be facing aspects of yourself that your ego has spent years keeping hidden, often for good reasons. The shadow contains not just negative qualities, but also positive ones you've disowned because they felt dangerous, selfish, or inappropriate. Begin each day by writing down 3 traits you strongly dislike in others. These traits that trigger your judgment are usually projections of disowned aspects of yourself. If you hate manipulative people, explore where you've been indirect rather than honest about your needs. If you despise selfishness in others, examine where you've been selfless to the point of self-abandonment. If you judge people who are too emotional, investigate where you've disconnected from your own feelings. The goal isn't to judge yourself for having these qualities, but to reclaim the disowned parts of your psyche that have been operating unconsciously. For each shadow quality, you identify practice expressing it in healthy, conscious ways. If you've disowned your anger, practice setting clear boundaries. If you've rejected your selfishness, experiment with prioritizing your needs. If you've hidden your vulnerability, try sharing something real with a trusted person. If you've suppressed your power, look for appropriate ways to lead or influence. This isn't about becoming these qualities unconsciously, but about integrating their energy so they can serve your wholeness rather than sabotage it from the shadows. Create a shadow integration ritual during this phase. Once a week, spend an hour in dialogue with an aspect of your shadow through journaling or art. Ask this part of yourself, what do you need me to know? What gifts do you offer? How can I honor you without letting you take over my life? Often shadow aspects just want to be acknowledged and given appropriate expression rather than complete control. Phase 3 is conscious participation, spanning days 61 through 90. And this involves learning to engage with life from your integrated self rather than your old persona. This requires creating new containers and boundaries that can hold your expanded sense of self. You're no longer the person who entered the void, but you're not yet fully stable in your new identity. This phase is about learning to walk in the world as your authentic self while still maintaining healthy relationships and responsibilities. Before any social interaction during this phase, ask yourself, who am I choosing to be in this moment? Notice when you slip into old roles, automatically the people pleaser, the strong one, the invisible one, and practice pausing to choose your response rather than reacting from habit. This doesn't mean becoming rigid or inauthentic, but developing the capacity to choose how you show up rather than defaulting to survival patterns. Set up what Jung called a temenos, a sacred space where you can practice being real before returning to the world. This might be a daily walk where you reconnect with your authentic feelings, a meditation practice where you check in with your true desires, or time in nature, where you remember who you are beyond your social roles. This sacred space becomes your psychological home base, the place you return to for authentic self-connection. Practice what I call graduated authenticity during this phase. Start with low-stakes interactions, where you practice showing up more authentically, perhaps with a cashier, a neighbor, or in online interactions. Notice what happens when you respond from your authentic self rather than your automatic role. Pay attention to which people appreciate your realness and which ones seem uncomfortable with it. This information will guide you toward relationships that can support your integrated self. Even with this protocol, there are predictable pitfalls that can derail your process, and I want to prepare you for these, because forewarned is forearmed. These traps are so common that I've seen nearly everyone fall into at least one of them during their void journey. The first trap is the spiritual bypass, and it's particularly seductive for people with psychological sophistication. Early warning signs include using spiritual concepts to avoid feeling pain, talking about higher purpose, while neglecting practical responsibilities, or believing you're beyond human concerns, like money relationships or social obligations. People in this trap often say things like, "I'm releasing attachment to outcomes," while actually avoiding the work of creating what they want. Or, "I'm trusting the universe," while abdicating personal responsibility. They may use meditation prayer or spiritual practices to escape difficult emotions rather than work through them. The correction for spiritual bypassing is honoring both transcendent insights and human needs. Spiritual growth includes paying bills and maintaining relationships, not escaping them. Carl Jung's shadow work is deeply practical. It doesn't lift you out of human life, but helps you engage with it more authentically and effectively. True spirituality integrates heaven and earth, the sacred and the mundane, transcendence and embodiment. If your spiritual insights aren't making you more effective at handling practical life challenges, they're likely serving as an escape rather than genuine transformation. The second pitfall is the victim identity, and this trap keeps people stuck in their void indefinitely by making the emptiness into an identity rather than a transition. Watch for believing the void happened to you rather than recognizing it as a natural part of psychological development, feeling uniquely wounded compared to others, or constantly comparing your pain to other people's experiences. People caught in this trap often become attached to their suffering as proof of their depth or sensitivity. They may resist moving through the void because leaving it would mean giving up the special status that comes with being the wounded one. The correction is recognizing that every authentic life includes multiple void experiences. This isn't punishment. It's the natural rhythm of growth and evolution. Your suffering isn't special. It's sacred. There's a profound difference. Sacred suffering connects you to the universal human experience of transformation and motivates you to grow through your challenges. Special suffering isolates you and keeps you focused on what makes your pain unique rather than what makes it healing. The goal isn't to minimize your experience, but to place it in the larger context of human development, where dissolution and reconstitution are normal parts of psychological evolution. The third trap is the hermit complex, and this shows up when people mistake isolation for individuation. Early signs include complete social withdrawal that extends beyond the natural need for solitude during transformation, believing you're too evolved for ordinary relationships, or feeling permanently isolated because others don't understand your process. People in this trap often develop a subtle superiority about their psychological work, seeing themselves as more conscious than others, and using this perception to justify permanent withdrawal from community. True individuation leads back to community, not away from it. Jung emphasized that the goal of psychological development isn't to become an isolated sage, but to develop the capacity for authentic relationship and meaningful contribution to the collective. Practice small, authentic interactions rather than total isolation. Start with brief, genuine exchanges and gradually expand your capacity for real connection. The hermit phase is natural and necessary, but it's meant to be temporary, a time of gathering yourself before returning to the world with greater consciousness and compassion. The fourth pitfall is rapid replacement, and this is perhaps the most subtle trap, because it often looks like healing or moving forward. This shows up as immediately seeking new relationships to fill the emotional void left by previous ones, making major life decisions while still in the acute phase of dissolution, or jumping into new identities before fully processing what you're leaving behind. People in this trap are often praised by others for bouncing back quickly or not letting it get them down, but they're actually avoiding the full transformation that the void offers. Each time you feel the urge to fill the space, immediately pause for 24 hours and ask what the emptiness is trying to teach you before moving toward replacement. Sometimes the medicine is in the waiting, not the doing. Sometimes the most courageous action is conscious inaction, allowing the full process to unfold before making major changes. This doesn't mean becoming passive or avoiding all decisions, but developing the wisdom to distinguish between actions that come from authentic readiness and those that come from discomfort with emptiness. As you emerge from the void, you'll discover that your capacity for relationship has fundamentally changed. You can no longer tolerate connections based on performance role-playing or mutual unconsciousness. You'll need new types of relationships that can hold your integrated self, and learning to recognize and cultivate these connections becomes essential for maintaining your transformation. Jung identified 3 categories of relationships that can support continued psychological growth, and understanding these categories will help you navigate post-void relationship building. The first category consists of what I call co-travelers, people who are also engaged in conscious inner work and can witness your ongoing process without feeling threatened by your growth or compelled to fix change or judge your experience. These individuals understand that transformation includes difficulty and doesn't follow linear progression. They've done enough of their own Carl Jung shadow work to recognize that psychological development involves periods of confusion, regression, breakthrough, and integration that can't be rushed or controlled. Co-travelers can sit with uncertainty and complexity without needing to resolve it immediately. When you share something vulnerable or confusing about your inner process, they respond with presence and curiosity, rather than immediate advice or reassurance. They ask questions that invite you deeper into yourself, rather than pulling you away from your experience. They might say things like, "What does that feel like in your body?" Or, "What do you think that part of you is trying to tell you?" rather than, "You should." Or, "Have you tried?" These relationships often begin when someone takes the risk to share something real and imperfect, and the other person responds with genuine interest rather than judgment or the need to fix. You recognize co-travelers by a certain quality of presence, a willingness to go beneath surface conversation into meaningful territory, and a capacity to appreciate the messiness and non-linear nature of authentic growth. Co-travelers often find each other through shared experiences, therapy groups, spiritual communities, creative pursuits, volunteer work, or life transitions that strip away pretense and invite authentic connection. They may not have anything obvious in common externally, but they share a commitment to consciousness, a willingness to face their own shadows, and an appreciation for depth over surface pleasantries. The second category consists of self-aware mirrors individuals who can reflect your authentic self back to you rather than your persona, your potential, or their projections of who they need you to be. These people see and appreciate who you're actually becoming, rather than who you've been or who you could be with their help. They notice and acknowledge your genuine qualities, your real gifts, and your actual growth without inflation, idealization, or the need to improve you. Self-aware mirrors have done enough work on their own projections that they can see you clearly rather than seeing their own needs, fantasies, fears, or unresolved issues reflected in your presence. When they offer feedback, it feels accurate and helpful rather than distorted by their personal agenda. When they appreciate your qualities, it feels genuine rather than manipulative or conditional. These relationships are particularly precious because they help you stabilize in your new identity by consistently reflecting your authentic self back to you rather than your performed roles. When you've spent years pleasing others and maintaining an acceptable image, you may not fully trust your own sense of who you are. Self-aware mirrors help you recognize and value your authentic expression by witnessing it without trying to change it or use it to meet their own needs. They might say things like, "I notice how much more relaxed you seem when you talk about your creative projects," or "There's something different in your voice when you speak about what you really want," or "You seem most yourself when you're not trying to impress anyone." These observations help you recognize and trust your own authenticity by seeing it reflected in someone else's clear perception. The third category consists of natural containers, people whose own inner work has created the psychological stability and emotional maturity needed to hold space for intensity without becoming overwhelmed, activated, or destabilized. These individuals have developed what Jung called a strong ego, not in the sense of arrogance or defensiveness, but in the sense of psychological integrity that can remain centered during emotional storms. Natural containers can witness your vulnerability, anger, grief, confusion, or excitement without taking it personally, absorbing it as their own experience, or feeling compelled to change your emotional state. They've learned to be present with difficult feelings without being consumed by them, supportive without enabling, and caring without caretaking. These relationships become especially important during ongoing integration work because transformation doesn't end when you complete your initial void experience. You'll continue to encounter smaller voids, shadow material identity shifts, and growth edges throughout your life. Natural containers provide the stable presence that allows continued development without the fear of overwhelming or losing the people you care about. They've learned to maintain their own emotional center while being fully present with others' experiences. They can say things like, "That sounds really difficult and I'm here with you," without trying to fix your problems or absorb your pain as their own. They can celebrate your successes without needing to take credit or make it about themselves. They can witness your struggles without becoming anxious or trying to rescue you from necessary growth experiences. Here's a practical protocol for recognizing these types of safe relationships as you encounter new people or reassess existing connections. When meeting someone new or deepening an existing relationship, ask yourself these diagnostic questions and pay attention to both your intellectual assessment and your body's response to their presence. First, notice the quality of space they create around them. Do you feel pressure to perform, impress, or maintain a certain image? Or do you feel permission to be authentic, imperfect, and real? Safe people often create what feels like spaciousness rather than contraction in your nervous system. You might notice that you breathe more deeply in their presence, that your shoulders relax, or that you feel less need to monitor and control your expression. Second, observe how they respond to your authentic sharing. When you share something vulnerable, imperfect, or uncertain, do they respond with presence and interest? Or do they immediately try to fix, change, or improve your experience? Do they ask questions that invite you deeper into yourself? Or do they quickly shift the conversation to their own similar experience or their advice about what you should do? Safe. People often respond to vulnerability with what therapists call attunement. They match your emotional tone rather than trying to change it. Reflect back what they heard, rather than immediately adding their own interpretation, and show genuine curiosity about your inner experience rather than rushing to solve your problems. Third, pay attention to what happens after you've been authentic with them. Do they remember and reference what you shared in future interactions, showing that they were genuinely present rather than just waiting for their turn to talk? Do they check in about ongoing situations you've mentioned, demonstrating real care for your experience? Do they honor the trust you've placed in them by not gossiping about your sharing or using it against you later? Fourth, notice their relationship to their own imperfection and growth. Do they share their own struggles and uncertainties in appropriate ways, showing that they understand the human condition from the inside? Do they take responsibility for their mistakes and show genuine interest in learning from them? Do they demonstrate self-compassion when they fall short of their own ideals, suggesting they can offer the same grace to you? People who are safe for authentic relationship have usually done enough inner work to develop humility about their own ongoing development. They don't present themselves as having everything figured out, and they don't need you to be perfect or completely healed to be worthy of their attention and care. The ultimate goal of navigating the void and integrating your shadow isn't just personal healing. It's developing the capacity to contribute to collective healing from a place of authentic wholeness rather than unconscious woundedness. When you've done your own Carl Jung shadow work, you naturally become someone who can support others' transformation without losing yourself in their process. This doesn't mean becoming a therapist or healing professional, though it might. It means bringing your integrated presence to whatever work you're called to do, whatever relationships you're part of, whatever communities you belong to. Your service becomes an expression of your wholeness rather than a flight from your emptiness, an offering of your gifts rather than an attempt to prove your worth. The shift from wounded healer to integrated healer changes everything about how you show up in the world. Instead of unconsciously seeking people who need fixing so you can avoid your own pain, you're drawn to people who inspire your growth and appreciate your authentic contributions. Instead of relationships based on mutual wounds or shared dysfunction, you create connections based on mutual growth and shared consciousness. This doesn't mean your relationships become perfect or conflict-free, but they become conscious. Difficulties are approached as opportunities for deeper understanding rather than reasons to withdraw attack or abandon the connection. Conflicts become invitations to practice better communication, clearer boundaries, and more authentic expression, rather than evidence that the relationship is doomed. Your service to others becomes sustainable because it comes from overflow rather than depletion from choice, rather than compulsion from love, rather than fear. You can offer your gifts generously without martyring yourself, hold space for others' growth without enabling their avoidance, and maintain your authentic self while adapting skillfully to different relationships and situations. The gift of the void isn't the emptiness itself. It's what emerges when you have the courage to stay present with the dissolution, rather than fleeing into premature replacement, spiritual bypassing, or unconscious repetition of old patterns. What you thought was death was actually birth. What felt like ending was beginning. The pain you experienced wasn't proof that something was wrong with you. It was proof that something was finally becoming right, that you were finally releasing identities that had served their purpose and making space for who you were always meant to become. Think about Kylie now 8 months after her initial dissolution began. She didn't return to marketing, though she easily could have with her skills and experience. Instead, she discovered a calling that had been buried under years of practical career choices. She became a pottery instructor for trauma survivors, combining her natural empathy with a creative practice that emerged during her time in the void. Her new apartment reflects her actual personality rather than her performed competence. Warm earth tones instead of safe neutrals, handmade objects that tell stories instead of purchased decorations that match books about subjects that genuinely fascinate her rather than ones chosen to create a certain impression. More importantly, Kylie moves through the world with a different quality of presence. There's a groundedness that wasn't there before, a quality of someone who knows who they are because they've been to the depths of not knowing and returned with their authentic self intact. She no longer apologizes for taking up space or asks permission to have preferences. She can say no without guilt, and yes, with genuine enthusiasm. She's learned that boundaries, rather than making her selfish, actually make her more available for authentic connection because she's showing up as herself rather than as who she thinks others need her to be. Kylie's relationships changed too. Some friendships fell away, the ones based on shared complaining or mutual performance. But deeper connections emerged with people who appreciated her realness over her reliability. She learned to say no without guilt, and yes, with enthusiasm. She discovered that boundaries, rather than making her selfish, actually made her more available for authentic connection because she was showing up as herself rather than as who she thought others needed her to be. This transformation isn't unique to Kylie, and it's not dependent on having a particular type of void experience or specific external circumstances. It's available to anyone willing to stay conscious during their dissolution, rather than unconsciously fleeing from it. The process requires courage, because it means facing the terror of not knowing who you are when you're not performing familiar roles. It requires patience, because transformation happens according to its own organic timing, not according to social expectations or personal preferences. Most of all, it requires trust. Trust that your authentic self is not only enough, but necessary, that your real gifts are more valuable than your performed ones, that who you truly are matters more than who you think you should be. The void strips away everything that isn't essential, everything that was borrowed or adopted or performed out of survival needs rather than authentic expression. This stripping away feels like destruction because we've become so identified with these external structures and roles. But underneath the constructed identity lies something that can't be destroyed by external circumstances. Your essential nature, your core gifts, your authentic way of being in the world that serves both your own fulfillment and the collective good. This essential self doesn't need to be created or achieved. It needs to be uncovered, trusted, and expressed. It's been there all along, waiting beneath the layers of conditioning, expectation, and survival adaptation. The void is the sacred space where this uncovering can finally happen, where you can finally stop performing who you think you should be and start expressing who you actually are. The pain of the void serves a specific function. It makes it impossible to maintain unconscious patterns that no longer serve your growth or contribute to your authentic expression. The discomfort motivates change in ways that comfort never could. When staying in old patterns becomes more painful than the uncertainty of transformation, you finally develop the motivation needed to release what's familiar and trust what's emerging. This process serves not just your individual development, but collective healing as well. When you stop performing roles that don't fit your authentic nature, you give others permission to do the same. When you express your real gifts instead of the ones you think the world wants from you. You contribute something unique and necessary that only you can offer. When you relate to others from authenticity rather than performance, you create the kind of connections that nourish everyone involved rather than depleting them. The world needs people who have done this work, who have faced their own shadows and integrated their disowned aspects, who can offer presence without enmeshment and service without self-sacrifice. The world needs people who know the difference between genuine strength and performed competence, between authentic compassion and enabling caretaking, between healthy boundaries and defensive walls. The void is not the end of you. It is the end of who you were, never truly meant to be. And from that sacred emptiness, the authentic self finally has space to emerge, breathe, and offer its unique gifts to a world that desperately needs real people doing real work from real places inside themselves. Here's your 24-hour integration task, and I want you to approach this as a gentle experiment in authenticity, rather than a demanding assignment that you need to perform perfectly. Choose one role or identity you've been clinging to out of fear, habit, or external pressure, rather than authentic desire. This might be the strong one, who never shows vulnerability or asks for help, the nice one, who never expresses disagreement or disappointment, the successful one, who measures worth through external achievements and comparison to others, the independent one, who never admits to needing support or connection, or the helper, who focuses on everyone else's problems to avoid facing their own challenges. For the next 24 hours, practice not performing that role in small, safe ways that feel manageable rather than terrifying. Notice what arises when you stop the automatic performance. Pay attention to the fear, the relief, the confusion, the clarity, the resistance, the freedom. All of it is information. All of it is sacred. All of it is teaching you something about the difference between who you are and who you've been trying to be. If you're the strong one, try asking someone for help with something small, or admit that you're struggling with something instead of pretending you have everything under control. If you're the nice one, try expressing a genuine preference that might disappoint someone, or sharing an honest opinion that differs from what others expect to hear. If you're the successful one, try sharing something you're uncertain about or struggling with instead of only presenting your achievements and competence. If you're the independent one, try accepting support that's offered or reaching out for connection when you feel isolated. The goal isn't to completely abandon these aspects of yourself overnight or to swing to the opposite extreme, but to begin distinguishing between conscious choice and unconscious compulsion, between authentic expression and automatic performance. You might discover that some elements of these identities truly serve you and others when chosen consciously and expressed authentically, while other elements are simply survival patterns that no longer fit your current life and relationships. Pay attention to how others respond to your increased authenticity. Notice which people seem comfortable with your realness and which ones try to pull you back into familiar roles. This information will guide you toward relationships that can support your integrated self and help you recognize connections that require you to perform in order to maintain them. If this exploration resonated with your own experience of the void, if you recognized yourself in the struggle between authentic self and performed identity, I invite you to share this video with someone who might be standing in their own darkness right now, wondering if they're broken rather than transforming. Sometimes the most healing gift we can offer another person is the understanding that their pain has meaning, that their dissolution has purpose, that their emptiness is pregnant with possibility rather than proof of personal failure. Your willingness to navigate your own void consciously creates a template that others can follow, when they face their own inevitable experiences of dissolution and rebirth. Your commitment to staying present with uncertainty rather than fleeing into premature replacement gives others permission to trust their own process of transformation. Your courage to express your authentic self rather than performing acceptable roles contributes to a collective awakening where more people can live from truth rather than survival patterns.